Hello, this is Aaron Mean of SG Gaming Info, and welcome to my video review of the PC version of Bungie's Destiny 2. Following the console release of Destiny 2, Bungie's large-scale first-person shooter makes its way to the PC. But was Destiny 2 worth the wait? Well, let's find out in my review of Destiny 2 for PC. Destiny 2 is very much Bungie learning from the mistakes they made in Destiny 1. But in learning and attempting to correct them, Destiny 2 feels somewhat bland. Not bad, but nothing stellar. In my review of Destiny 1, I mentioned that one of the big issues with the first Destiny game was its poor story. I believe I said, the problem with the story is that it felt rushed and incomplete, with story elements thrown in and never resolved. So with that said, I think I'll start this review of Destiny 2 by looking at its story. First and foremost, Destiny 2's story is far more concrete, with a beginning, middle and end. In Destiny 2, the story revolves around the Cabal forces of the Red Legion and its commander Dominus Gall successfully attacking the last city and imprisoning the Traveler in a cage. This cage causes all Guardians, including you, to lose your light, the power that allows you to use your abilities and make you immortal. This attack has left everyone scrambling, including the Vanguard, which is comprised of Commander Zavala, Ikora Rey, and Cayde 6. The Vanguards are teachers and leaders of the game's three classes, Titan, Warlock, and Hunter. So without them, any hope of retaking the city is lost. However, while you have lost your powers, you find a helping hand in the form of Sarah Hawthorne, a non-Guardian human who lives in the outskirts of the last city and helps refugees. She is no friend of Guardians, but she points you to a shard of the Traveler located in the European Dead Zone, also known as the EDZ. When you reach this shard, your ghost interfaces with it, and it restores your light. Now, with your light returned, you look for a way to defeat Gall and his Red Legion. To that end, you learn Zavala is planning an assault, and so you head to Titan to join up. Once on Titan, you learn that Zavala's plan isn't going well, but once you reveal your light has returned and restored power to his base, Zavala regains his determination and tells you to find Ikora Rey and Cayde 6 in preparation for an assault on the Cabal-controlled city. While you easily gather Ikora and Cayde, there is a problem. The Red Legion has deployed a powerful weapon called the Almighty. This weapon has the power to destroy the sun and subsequently the entire solar system. So before taking out Gall, the Almighty must be destroyed. After destroying the Almighty and witnessing a great cutscene of the Vanguard defeating Cabal, you take on Gall, who has absorbed the light from the Traveler. But in the end, you defeat him, and the Traveler rips open the cage and restores its light to not only the solar system, but to the universe. As you can see, Destiny 2 has a strong 3-act structure. The game starts with you losing everything, then goes to you gathering your forces for a counterattack, and finally attempting to retake what was lost at the beginning of the game. So in terms of structure, Destiny 2 offers a solid story, but much like Destiny 1, it feels rushed. The gathering of the scattered vanguards is straightforward, and despite the fact that the characters talk about how they are scared following the loss of the light, and knowing they are no longer immortal, they brush it aside pretty quickly. The main antagonist is also poorly fleshed out, with Gall flip-flopping on how to gain the Traveler's light. At the start he wants to use the cage to forcefully take the power, then he wants to gain it by proving his worth to the Traveler, and finally he goes back to his original idea. I think the game wanted to show Gall wrestle with how to approach gaining power, but in the end, it came off as odd. The game's main characters were a bit better, with Zavala, Ikora, and Cayde being relatively well fleshed out, but the character of Cayde 6 voiced by Nathan Fillion, was a standout as the character didn't appear to take things seriously, as he would complain about never getting a tank and cuddle a chicken during a meeting to liberate the last city. Special mention has to be given to Sarah Hawthorne, who we see grow from having anti-Guardian sentiment to understanding the role of the Guardians and helping Zavala make the last city a more welcoming place. Moving away from the story and characters, let's look at the gameplay. In terms of gameplay, Destiny 2 far exceeds Destiny 1, especially in the navigation department. For example, in Destiny 1, to go to a new planet, you had to go into orbit, select a world, and go there. But in Destiny 2, you just open your map and go to your destination, without having to jump into orbit. It sounds simple, but Destiny 2's navigation method cuts down on unnecessary steps and loading screens. Speaking of maps, Destiny 2 now has maps. It sounds silly, but Destiny 1 didn't have any maps, which made the world feel small and removed any incentive to explore. But the inclusion of maps in Destiny 2 makes each world feel bigger and easier to navigate. The inclusion of maps in Destiny 2 also makes it easier to find side activities, something that Destiny 1 was also lacking, because on any given world in Destiny 1, you could only really do strikes, story missions, public events, or patrols. But in Destiny 2, players had access to strikes, public events, patrol missions, lost sectors, hidden loot boxes, and side quests called adventures. What made the new side activities better is the fact that you could find them via the map. So if you wanted to know where the next public event was taking place, you just simply open the map and have a look. The amount of side content available in Destiny 2 is very much a highlight for me. While the side content in Destiny 2 is good, I think it is worth pointing out that Destiny 2 removes the difficulty system available for Destiny 1 story missions. This meant that Destiny 2 story missions were incredibly straightforward, especially if you did a few side activities in between missions. For example, by the time I was halfway through the story missions on Titan, I had reached a light level of 213. The story missions I had to complete had a recommended light level of 60. Moving on to the worlds in Destiny 2, I feel the game offered a nice visual variety, with the rundown and destroyed areas of Earth, the methane rivers and dockland feel of Titan, the mysterious and exotic world of Nessus, and the semi-terraformed Io. Each world I visited felt interesting and conveyed their own stories, and has at least one of the 4 enemy factions on them. Now, of course, while you are on a planet, you need a mode of transport. And just like the first Destiny game, you can use your Sparrow, a high-powered hoverbike, to traverse each world. But in Destiny 2, there is a slight complication, as you have to be level 20, max level, to unlock it. Besides the hoverbike, you have access to a tank for 2 story missions. The tank in question is incredibly overpowered and destroys enemies in seconds. Moving on to combat, Destiny 2 retains Destiny 1's solid gunplay, but with some changes to the weapon loadout. While Destiny 1 had primary, secondary and heavy slots, Destiny 2 has kinetic, energy and power slots. The change in Destiny 2 means that fewer weapons are tied to one specific weapon slot. For example, in Destiny 1, the likes of the assault rifle and pulse rifle were both in the primary slot. But in Destiny 2, both rifles are available in the kinetic and energy slots. The only difference is that the weapons in the energy slot cause elemental damage. Apart from the changes to the weapon slots, there isn't much to say about the gameplay. It is solid, especially on the PC, as the mouse and keyboard allows for more precise aiming. Moving on from the guns, we have the player versus player content, which it turns out I am pretty terrible at. But apart from that, it is a pretty fun experience. PvP consists of 4v4 quick play or competitive matches. The quick play matches consist of one of 3 modes randomly selected by the game. The modes are Control, which is basically domination, Clash, which is team deathmatch, and Supremacy, which is kill confirm. In competitive, there are 2 modes, which are Countdown, which is plant a bomb to win, and Survival, a skirmish mode where the team that exhausts all their opponents' respawns wins. PvP is an enjoyable experience. While I'm not a huge fan of player versus player games, I had some fun and the modes were well balanced, as the game disables all level advantages. If you aren't a fan of PvP, the game does entice you with the potential for rare and legendary gear that work well in both PvE and PvP. Speaking of PvE, Destiny 2 offers 3-man dungeons in the form of strikes. Destiny 2 has a total of 5 strikes, well 6 if you play on the PS4, and they are accessible via the skirmish icon on your destination window. And just like PvP, you can't select your strike, as you are given a random skirmish upon selecting the strike playlist. It is also worth noting that strikes now contain a matchmaking system. In Destiny 1 you had to go find players in the game, but in Destiny 2 it teams you up with other players looking for a strike. If strikes get too easy for you, you can try their Nightfall variants, which increase the strength of the enemies and add random modifiers. Unfortunately, the Nightfall variants don't have a matchmaking system. Moving away from the PvP and strikes, let's see how Destiny 2 allows for communication between players. Now, bearing in mind that Destiny 2 is on PC and aims to offer an MMO-like experience, you would be forgiven for thinking that a global and local text chat would be an obvious inclusion. Well, someone should have told the developers, because Destiny 2 contains no global or local text chat, only Fireteam and Whisper chats. For me, a lack of global and local text chat is mind-blowing, as it means players can't talk to each other, look for players to group up for non-matchmaking content such as Nightfall strikes, or getting players together to take on a public event. Prior to the release of the PC version of Destiny 2, Bungie explained to PC Gamer Zen why the game would have no public chat by saying, what that did was it fostered a strange culture, where it was really difficult to do something. Griefing was hard, right? The worst thing I ever encountered was someone that followed me around the tower for like 20 minutes, and was just mildly annoying. Apparently, Bungie didn't want players getting upset by conversations in a public chat. I mean, it's not like Bungie could add a feature where players could turn public chat on or off. Moving away from Bungie's poor chat implementation, let's look at microtransactions. Yes, Bungie has followed the trend in adding real-world money content into a full-price game. The microtransactions are based on a loot box system where players are required to purchase right engrams with silver, which are in turn purchased with real money. The cost of silver ranges from $4.99 for 500 to $49.99 for 5,800. In terms of how much silver bright engrams cost, one engram is 200 silver, 3 is 500, and 5 is 800. With that said, what do engrams contain? Well, it mostly contains vanity objects such as ships, sparrows, emotes, ghosts, weapon and armor skins, shaders, and mods. Now, I feel the last 2 on the list are important, as the mods you can purchase do offer stat boosts, and so they could potentially benefit players who purchase them. And well, shaders are tricky because in Destiny 2, shaders are single use. So if you use a shader on an item you like, but later dismantle it, you lose the shader. It is worth noting that in Destiny 1, shaders weren't lost on use. It's also important to note that once you hit level 20, you do receive a bright engram every time you fill your experience bar. In regards to issues with the game, I did experience one crash and an odd bug where I spawned in an area I couldn't leave when I first landed on Titan. It took leaving the world and revisiting to fix. Finally, before reaching my conclusion, let's talk graphics. Destiny 2 looks stunning on PC, and for me, the game ran at a very smooth 60 frames per second, although I did notice some drops when a lot of particle effects go off at once. So in conclusion, Destiny 2 is a solid first-person shooter. The game offers great gunplay and lots of content, but the game is unfortunately let down by the lack of any real text chat and forgettable story. With that all said, I give Destiny 2 a score of 7 out of 10, with the game's pros being lots of content to explore solo or with friends, and great gunplay. The game's cons are microtransactions and no public chat. Thank you for watching. Please like, favorite and subscribe. For more gaming information, please visit sggaminginfo.com. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/sggaminginfo. And of course, follow us on Twitter at sggaminginfo.